Doesn't that look delicious? Oh, wow. Hello, welcome to WayPoint Survival. Today, we're going to show you how to make some hobo bear sign. You're going to love it. Stay tuned. All right, so today we're going to make something really fun. Now, this is something that cowboys used. It's something that a lot of frontier people liked, and especially as you traveled farther west, it became very important. People absolutely love this recipe. Louis L'Amour wrote about it in his books. And it was said that someone who could make good bear sign, especially out on the frontier or out on the range, was a very sought after frontier cook. So bear sign is sort of like a modern donut, even though it's really nothing like that in shape or appearance. What we're using today is an 1885 recipe, actually from that year, which shows how to put this together using simple ingredients that you might have on a chuck wagon or perhaps in a larger hobo jungle where you had access to town and you could bring in various things from different farmhouses, as well as whatever money you would earn you could put together and make this out of just very simple ingredients. To make this, we have some very simple ingredients, as I said before. First of all, you're going to need some all-purpose flour, about 4 cups of it. You're going to need some salt, also some baking soda. Now you can add some cinnamon if you want, or what we're going to use in this recipe is some nutmeg. And we have a nutmeg grater here. You can see the nutmeg there in the top. You're also going to need some butter. And we've got some butter here. It's melted already. And this is about 2 sticks of butter. So you can get, it's about what, about a half a pound. You're also going to need a couple of eggs, some vinegar, and then a cup of milk. And then this is a tub of lard, and you're going to really like this. I'll show you that here in a little bit. This is a very unique lard tin, very unique. It has something I've never seen before, and its last patent date was 1893. So we'll get into that here in a minute. And then you're going to need just a paper bag with some powdered sugar in it. Okay, so the first thing that we need is we need 4 cups of all-purpose flour. Now we've got our little scoop in here, and it's about a half a cup per scoop, so you get that figured out pretty quick. All right, so there's 1, and I'll go ahead and add the rest and get back to you. Next, we need to add 1 tablespoon of salt. Okay, there we go. We need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Use the lid here. Scrape off most of it. All right, there we go. And now we need to add 1 teaspoon, I'm sorry, 1/4 teaspoon. We need to add a 1/4 teaspoon of grated nutmeg. Now, you can kind of guess how you do this. It doesn't have to be precise, but basically with a nutmeg grater, you just start grating, and it comes out the end. And I'm just going to kind of guess. We don't want to overdo this, but I'll do this and get back with you. All right, there we go. So that's about a 1/4. Again, you don't want to overdo it. It has a very strong flavor, and nutmeg was very popular back in the day. Now we're just going to mix all of this in together real good. You want to make sure the dry mix is worked in well, and it doesn't take very long to do this, of course. Get that mixed in well. Now if you do use metal on this, granite ware, make sure you're very careful. It's always best to use a wooden spoon if you can. If you do have to use metal, go lightly and try not to scrape it too much. All right, the next ingredient that we need to add 1 cup of melted butter. So I've already got this warmed up nice. All right, almost there. Okay, there we go. Put that in a separate bowl. And now we need 2 eggs, and we need to separate them. So go ahead and open this. And that didn't work so well. So we can do this the hard way. All right, well that didn't work. So we're just not going to separate them. You're supposed to separate them and add them in later. It works a little better, but I think this will work just fine. We're just going to use them both. Again, when you're out like this and you're doing things, don't worry too much. It does work better if you can fold it in later, but we're just going to do it all at once for sake of time. And I'm sure some of you cooks out there are screaming, don't do that, don't do that, but it's going to taste pretty good either way. And believe me, when you're out on the frontier or out in the back country, you're not going to mind so much. All right, so technically, like I said, you're supposed to separate the eggs and the whites and the yolk and add them in differently, but we're just going to do it this way since it broke anyway. Next, our recipe calls for some sour milk. Now, you can substitute buttermilk for this if you want, but what we're going to do is we're going to add just some distilled white vinegar, 1 teaspoon to a cup of milk, and you're going to let that set for about 5 minutes. Now, it can work better if you put the vinegar in first and pour the milk on top of it, or you can just do it this way and give it a good stir. The important thing is that you let it sit until it becomes sour milk. Now, along with this, it's always good to have an old rag so you can wipe things down and keep your hands and everything else clean. Now we're going to put the melted butter, and we're just going to mix it in and kind of fold it in here a little bit at a time into our mix. Make sure we get all that out of there. And then after you've beaten the egg yolks and the white, of course, in this case we did it all, we want to go ahead and do the same thing and continue to fold and mix this together. It's looking pretty good. All right, so we've got our fire going right here to my right, and we're letting that milk sour, like I said, for about 5 minutes. But I wanted to show you this tin. Again, it's got a handle, bail handle, but it's got this strange little bend here. And then if you'll notice on the top, it has a handle. And like a frying pan, but it doesn't actually do anything. And like I said, the last date here, it says that the patent was reissued November 7th of 93. You can kind of see that perhaps. So it took me a little while to figure out how this works. I was trying to get the lid off, and it's really tight. It's sealed really, really well. So here's what you do. And this is very clever. Again, this is the kind of thing that people figured out years ago. You take this and you pull this to the side, and you come right across where that bend is, right here. Go all the way across like that so that it's stuck in there. Then all you have to do is put a little leverage on here, and the lid pops right off. No muss, no fuss. And there's your lard. I just thought that was incredibly clever. And again, we don't use tin objects a lot anymore, so it's a problem we don't have. But somebody solved that. Had a hard time getting it off, and they came up with a clever little device how to get it open. Now what we need for this recipe is we need about 1 inch of grease down in the bottom of lard. And so we're just going to dip a whole bunch out. And of course you can reuse this. So you pour it back in here after it's melted, and you only use enough to fry with. By the way, there's a lot of studies that have shown that natural fats like this are actually healthier for you than vegetable oils. It's kind of interesting. All right, that's probably pretty good. Can always add some later if we need to. All right, and now we're just going to set it here on the grate and let it start melting. That's a pretty good spot right there. All right, got to get that nice and hot. All right, so now our soured milk is ready, and we're just going to pour it in here and commence mixing. Now, if you get to this point and you find out that your dough is too thick, you can always add more flour. I'm going to go ahead and stir this, and I'll get back with you. Okay, so our dough is still a little too loose, so we're going to add some more flour. you want this to be stiff. You want it to be stiff enough where you can put a spoon in it and the spoon will stand up by itself. All right, that looks pretty good. You can see the spoon will stick up in it, so that's exactly what we're looking for. All right, now, pick that back up. All right, now, a little flour there, and we want to roll this out. So a little bit like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a pinch of this, just like this, and we're going to drop this in the hot skillet. All right, so it's supposed to be irregular. That's the whole idea. It's supposed to look like bear droppings. That's why it gets the term bear sign. My, doesn't that look good? All right, so you're supposed to fry them until they're golden brown on one side, and then you want to flip them over. Of course, you can overdo it, so you got to be careful. You don't want to burn them. All right, they're doing pretty well. It goes pretty fast once you get this nice and hot. All right, I'm gonna call this one done. Get a look at that. That looks delicious. All right, there's another one. So you can see what that looks like. Doesn't that look delicious? All right, and now for the finishing touches. You can see we've got a beautiful plate here, and it does look a little bit like a pile of bear droppings, hence the name bear sign. So there's a couple things you can do. I've got some powdered sugar in this bag, and what you can do is you can either put them in the bag and shake them around, and that'll get them nice and covered, or back in the day, of course, sugar was expensive, so you might just drizzle a little bit on top just to add a hint of sweetness. Doesn't that look beautiful and tasty? All right, so it's time to give this the taste test. Let's see what our bear sign tastes like. Oh, wow. I can easily see why this was so popular on the frontier. It's not quite like a donut, but it is absolutely delicious. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, just look at the texture of that. I mean, those are just so beautifully done. And it's easy to do over an open fire with a minimal amount of supplies, stuff that you can easily pack and carry with you. Of course, this would go a whole lot better if I had a nice big hot cup of coffee to drink with it. Now that would go down good. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed another foray into the past, an actual bear sign recipe from 1885. You should give it a try. I think you'll like it. It's absolutely delicious. This is James Bender for WayPoint Survival. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure and check out the links in the description box below, just under the More button. While you're down there, you'll find the link for our WayPoint Survival digital class. This is where you can train in the comfort and convenience of your own backyard the top 20 skills that we teach in our Phase 1 Survival and Bushcraft class. You'll also find the link where you can sign up for our WayPoint Survival and Prepping 101 newsletter, chock full of amazing ideas coming to your inbox at least once a week, if not more often. It's also a way that we can stay in touch with you in case something happens to this platform. While you're down there, you'll find the link for our waypointsurvival.com site. This is where you can sign up to take in-person classes at our beautiful training facility here in Southern Ohio. So make sure and check out those dates, and also check out the required gear list. That's important. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. And when you do subscribe, make sure and press that bell button so that you can stay notified of all of our upcoming videos, and we'll talk to you next time. That is so good. Oh, that is so good.